They say time heals all wounds, but the truth is, some wounds don't heal. They simply grow quiet, buried under decades of silence, routine, and polite smiles that hide the ache. If you've ever walked away from everything you once knew because you just couldn't carry the weight anymore, then maybe this story is for you. Welcome to Life After 50, a quiet place for real stories told slowly, for people who've loved deeply, lost greatly, and are still looking for something that feels like home. Today's story is about starting over, not because you wanted to, but because staying meant forgetting who you really were. It's about barns, dusty memories, and the one object buried under hay and rust that brought back everything I tried to forget. So settle in. Let this be a soft landing place for whatever you've been carrying too long. And if this story touches something inside you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We tell stories like this often. Stories that don't shout, but linger. And if someone you know has been quiet for too long, share this video with them, because maybe they're waiting for a reason to come back to life too. They say people who walk away don't just leave a place, they leave the person they once were. That's what I did. I didn't slam a door, I didn't write a note, I didn't even turn off the coffee pot. I just left. At 60 years old, I closed the front door to the house I had lived in for 34 years and never looked back. No one knew. My sons thought I was visiting a friend. My neighbor Margie waved from her window like she always did. The dog down the street barked like he always did, but something inside me had gone silent, and when silence stays too long inside a man, it starts to rot. The day before I left, I stood in my garage staring at a box labeled Dad's Tools. It hadn't been opened since my father passed away 22 years earlier. Inside were rusted wrenches, old sockets, a small hammer I remembered from when I was a boy. They still smelled like oil and cedar, familiar, heavy. But as I reached in, something shifted beneath the box. A photo. It was of me and my wife, Anna, on our wedding day. She wore blue, not white, because it rained that day, and she didn't care what people thought. Her smile wasn't just beautiful, it was brave. Anna had been gone 7 years, cancer. But in that garage, standing with that photo in my hand, I realized I had been gone a lot longer. The death of a loved one doesn't always happen in hospitals. Sometimes it happens quietly, in the spaces we stop filling with life. I had stopped living the day she left, but I didn't notice. I kept mowing the lawn, paying the bills, smiling at grandkids on holidays. I became what people call stable, but inside I was a collapsed barn, standing but hollow. That morning, I packed nothing but a change of clothes, a photograph of Anna, and a rusted pocket knife my father gave me when I turned 12. I didn't have a plan, just a direction. Away. I drove west. No music, no GPS, just roads I didn't know, and the wind through a cracked window. The strange thing about starting over at 60 is that no one expects you to. That's what makes it powerful. When you no longer owe the world an explanation, you finally begin to hear your own. I slept in cheap motels for the first few nights, drank coffee from gas station paper cups, listened to the rain on tin roofs. For the first time in years, I wasn't anyone's husband, anyone's father. I was just me, and I was terrified. But in that fear was something else. Freedom. On the 7th day of driving, I passed a crooked mailbox half buried in tall grass. The name had faded, but the house behind it pulled me in like a memory. It wasn't beautiful. The roof sagged. The windows were boarded. A barn stood beside it, leaning slightly, like an old man trying not to fall, but something inside me whispered, "Stop here." So I did, and that's where everything began again. I parked the car under the shade of a twisted oak tree, got out, walked to the front porch and sat down. No one came out. No dog barked. No, For sale, sign. Just silence. So I stayed. That night, I slept inside the barn. There was a pile of hay in one corner, dry enough to be soft, dusty enough to remind me that things left behind aren't always useless. The wind howled outside, and through a broken slat in the wood, I saw stars I hadn't looked at in years. We don't always run from something. Sometimes we walk toward who we used to be. I didn't know yet what was inside that barn. I didn't know what was buried beneath the boards, or tucked into the loft, or left behind by the person who owned it before me. But I would find it. And when I did, I would remember everything I tried to forget. The barn didn't look like much from the outside. Its roof was missing shingles. One of the doors hung sideways, held on by a single rusted hinge. Cobwebs hung like curtains in every corner. Dust danced in the sunlight through holes in the walls. But as I stepped inside that morning, I had the strangest feeling, like the barn was waiting for me. I hadn't planned to stay. But the barn didn't seem to mind. It wasn't just old, it was tired. Like me, like we were both waiting to collapse, but holding it together out of habit. In the far left corner, behind a pile of collapsed crates, I found an old trunk. Heavy, locked, covered in faded stickers that hinted at travel. Denver, Kansas City, Nashville. Whoever owned this place had lived, had moved, had collected moments that mattered enough to carry. I didn't try to open it just yet. Some things you have to approach slow. So I explored. There was a rusted bicycle with a cracked leather seat, a tin box of buttons, a child's drawing nailed to the back of a beam, stick figures smiling beside a crooked sun. In one corner, a broken radio. In another, a lantern with melted wax still clinging to its base, and then, tucked beneath a dusty tarp near the barn's rear wall, a piano. Some memories don't return in words. They return in sounds you thought you'd forgotten how to hear. It was missing a few keys. The ivory was yellowed. But when I brushed off the dust and lifted the lid, I pressed. One note. Middle C. Soft, out of tune, but real. The sound echoed in that hollow space like it had been waiting for years to be heard again, and it hit me. This wasn't just someone's barn. It had been someone's sanctuary. I sat down on the old piano bench. There was a photo tucked between the keys. It was a black and white snapshot of a man, maybe in his 30s, sitting at this very piano, smiling wide. Beside him stood a little girl in overalls, holding a harmonica. Written on the back, Harold and Maisie, summer 71. Maisie. The name hit something inside me I didn't expect. My mother's name. I knew it couldn't be her, but just seeing it felt like something was pulling me backward, into a time before bills, funerals, and broken birthdays, a time when music meant something. Life doesn't just live in the present. Sometimes it leaves breadcrumbs in barns, waiting for someone to follow them. Over the next few days, I stayed in that barn. I cleaned, sorted, repaired. Not because I had to, because I wanted to see. I slept on a pile of hay wrapped in an old quilt I found in a trunk. It smelled like cedar and lavender and something else I couldn't name, maybe time. On the 5th morning, I woke up to the sound of someone humming outside. The barn. Low, soft, like the kind of hum a mother makes when brushing a daughter's hair. When I stepped out, there was no one there, but a harmonica lay on the porch step, not dusty, not old, like someone had just left it for me. Not everything forgotten is gone. Some things wait for the right soul to find them again. That evening I took the photograph of Harold and Maisie and placed it above the piano. I didn't know them, but somehow they knew me, because that barn wasn't just full of dust. It was full of invitation. An invitation to remember, to reclaim, to rebuild. Not just a building. Myself. But I hadn't found what truly changed everything yet. That was still hidden beneath floorboards and sorrow and a name I hadn't heard in over 30 years. The morning after I found the harmonica, I noticed something strange. Right near the piano bench, one floorboard creaked differently than the others. Not just the usual tired groan of old wood, but a hollow, unsettled sound. Like something was underneath. I pushed the bench aside, knelt down, and pressed my fingers against the edge of the plank. It was loose, barely. I slid my pocket knife beneath the corner and lifted gently. Dust scattered into the air like it had been trapped for decades. Beneath the board was a cloth bundle wrapped in what looked like an old flannel shirt, tied with a faded red shoelace. It smelled of mothballs, tobacco, and time. I untied it slowly. Inside were three things: a small leather-bound notebook, a folded, yellowed newspaper clipping, and a silver chain with a broken locket. I opened the notebook first. The handwriting was messy, scrawled, rushed. June 13th, 1991, she left again. Maisie won't say where. Said she'd be back, but this time I don't believe her. I kept reading. Page after page, Harold poured his thoughts into that notebook. His heartbreak, his guilt, his frustration that he couldn't be both father and mother to Maisie. One entry stopped me cold. September 9th, 1992, I saw him again. The man from the porch. Maisie says his name is Tom. He doesn't look like he belongs here, but she calls him Uncle. She doesn't know he's her father. I froze. My heart didn't beat. It hammered. Tom. My name is Tom, but this wasn't just coincidence. I remembered a summer in 1991. I was 29. Back then I was wild, charming, maybe. Irresponsible, definitely. There had been a woman, free-spirited, musical, loved the harmonica. We had spent a week together in a small town outside Nashville. Her name was Maisie. I sat there on the barn floor, the notebook trembling in my hands. This wasn't just some stranger's sanctuary. It was mine. Sometimes life doesn't bury the past. It simply waits until we're finally quiet enough to hear it whisper back. The newspaper clipping was an obituary. Harold Sims, beloved father and musician, died 2003, survived by his daughter Maisie. No mention of grandchildren. No surviving spouse. I opened the locket next. Inside was a photo, a baby girl, eyes, big hair wispy, cheeks full of promise. On the back, scratched in tiny writing, to Tom, she has your eyes. My breath caught. She had my eyes. I didn't know what I was looking for when I walked away from my old life, but somehow, life had walked me right into a chapter I'd never known I had written. A daughter, a girl I never held, never named, never even knew existed. For hours I sat there on the barn floor, not moving, not thinking, just feeling. The weight of it all settled into my bones like cold. Regret isn't the worst part of aging. The worst part is discovering too late that you could have mattered more than you did. I didn't know where Maisie was now. I didn't know the girl's name. I didn't even know if either of them was still alive, but suddenly I had purpose again. That night I lit the old lantern. I placed the notebook on the piano and stared at the photograph until my tears blurred the lines of the baby's face. I whispered into the dark, "I'm sorry. I didn't know, but now I do. And I'm coming." The next morning I folded the photograph, wrapped the locket, and placed them gently inside my jacket pocket, close to my chest. It felt like carrying a heartbeat I never knew I had. I had no address, no phone number, just a name, Maisie, and a face, a little girl with my eyes. But that was enough. I had followed less for more foolish reasons in my youth. Now, for once, I was chasing something that truly mattered. I drove to town. The small diner near the edge of the main road had 2 trucks parked outside and a dog asleep on the porch. I walked in. A bell over the door rang like an echo from another life. The waitress looked up. 60, maybe 65. Hair in a tight bun, eyes like she'd seen more life than she let on. "Coffee?" She asked like she already knew I needed it. Her name was Helen. Over a slice of peach pie, I asked gently, "You ever know a girl named Maisie Sims?" Her eyes flicked, sharp, quick, not suspicious, surprised. "Everyone knew Maisie," she said. "Haven't heard that name in years." Played the harmonica like it was her first language. Used to come in here with her daughter. Sweet thing, real quiet. I didn't breathe. "Do you know where they went?" She looked at me for a long second, then said softly, "Last I heard, they moved up north, near Columbus. Maisie worked with horses. That girl of hers loved to draw." She hesitated. "Why are you asking?" I paused, then simply said, "I think I might be family." She didn't press. She just refilled my coffee and slid a napkin across the counter with a name and a number. "Grace Miller, runs a stable up in Marion. Friend of Maisie's. If anyone knows where she went, it's Grace." Sometimes the trail to redemption isn't paved with certainty, just strangers kind enough to let you try. I called that afternoon. A woman's voice picked up. "Worn but warm," Grace speaking. I introduced myself. Told her I was looking for Maisie. Mentioned the barn, the notebook, the locket. There was silence on the line. Then she asked, "Did you say she has your eyes?" I said yes, and she sighed, long, heavy, like a wind blowing out the years. "Her name's Lily now," she said quietly. "Maisie passed away 5 years ago. Cancer, just like her mother." I gripped the phone tighter. Tears welled up. "She died?" "Peacefully," Grace said. She didn't talk about the past much, but she left Lily a box. Said not to open it unless a man named Tom ever came asking. I couldn't speak. "Grief is the price of love we never got to give in time." Grace gave me an address. A flower shop in Columbus. She said Lily ran it. And then she added, "She has your eyes. And her mother's fire. If you go, be honest. That girl doesn't need any more lies." That night, I drove, through rain, through darkness, through 30 years of silence wrapped around my ribs like regret. I didn't know what I would say, but I knew I had to say it. I slept in the truck outside the flower shop. It was small. Warm light in the window. Paint peeling slightly on the trim. A handwritten sign on the door said, "Lily's garden, fresh starts in every stem." The next morning, I waited. Until she came. She walked up the sidewalk, keys jingling, humming softly, brown hair and a loose ponytail. A canvas bag full of books. And those eyes. My eyes. She looked right at me, paused. "Can I help you?" she asked, politely but guarded. I stood. My voice cracked. "I think I might be your father." She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't slam the door. She just stared, and after a long pause, whispered, "Mom said you might come. She left something for you." "Wait here." She went inside. Came back with a wooden box, worn, carved with the initials M+T. Inside, call on a photo of Maisie and Lily, the same harmonica, and a letter written in delicate cursive. "If he comes back, tell him I never hated him. I just didn't know how to let him love me without breaking, but Lily deserves to know. Because sometimes the lost come back, and when they do, we open the door." Maisie, I didn't know what to say, but Lily stepped forward, took the box from my hands, then quietly, "Do you want to come in for tea? Forgiveness isn't loud. Sometimes it walks in on quiet feet and simply invites you to sit down." The inside of Lily's flower shop smelled like eucalyptus, damp soil, and something warm I hadn't felt in years. Home. There were plants hanging from the ceiling. Sunlight poured through the windows like it was trying to touch everything she loved. Photos lined a shelf above the counter, mostly of flowers, some of customers, and one of her and Maisie. I stood quietly, hands shaking. "You can sit." Lily said, gently motioning to a small wooden table in the corner. I nodded. Sut. Watched her move through the shop like she'd done it 1,000 times. Like everything in her world had a place, and now she was deciding if I had 1, 2. She poured the tea, chamomile, then sat down across from me. For the first few minutes, we didn't speak. Just sipped. Just breathed. Then she said, almost too softly to hear, you really didn't know? I shook my head. I didn't even know she was pregnant. If I had, I stopped myself, because the truth was, I didn't know what I would have done. Back then I was too selfish, too afraid, too lost to be anyone's father. Lily looked down at her cup. She used to play the harmonica when it rained. She smiled faintly. Said it made the storm feel like music. I felt my chest twist. I still have it, I said. The one from the barn. She nodded. She never stopped loving you, even when she said she had. Time doesn't erase love. It just buries it beneath the things we never said. We talked for hours. I told her about the barn, the piano, the notebook, the trunk beneath the floorboards. She told me about growing up without a father, but never feeling unloved. Because Maisie had enough fire for 2. She told me about how Maisie would sit at the window and hum when she thought Lily was asleep. And how every now and then she'd say, he wasn't ready, but I hope one day he will be. I cried. Not the kind of cry that needs noise, the kind that leaks out quietly, as if your soul is apologizing. One tear at a time. Lily didn't hug me. She didn't call me Dad. But before I left, she handed me something small, wrapped in brown paper. It's nothing much, she said. Just something I painted when I was a kid. I opened it later that night. It was a drawing, a little girl, a tall man with kind eyes, and a barn. Above them, a crooked sun smiled in the corner. On the back, in messy crayon letters, me and the man from the photograph. I fell to my knees when I saw it, because somehow she had always known, somewhere deep in her heart, she had carried a place for me, even when I had vanished from the map of her life. Some love waits quietly in corners, not demanding, just hoping. A week later, I returned to the barn. This time, with Lily. She walked through it slowly, tracing the piano keys, touching the photograph, lifting dust like it was memory, and then she looked at me and whispered, do you want to fix it up? I nodded. With you? She smiled. Yeah, let's bring it back. And so we did. Day by day, nail by nail. We painted. We planted wildflowers outside. We put up new windows, but kept the creaky floorboard, the one that hid the locket, just as it was. And every Sunday, she brought tea. And I played the piano, off-key, but full of something real. Some stories don't end. They just turn pages. We didn't talk much about labels. She called me Tom, sometimes old man. But every now and then, when she wasn't looking, I whispered daughter to the wind and hoped maybe, just maybe, the wind would carry it to her heart. Sometimes we walk away from our lives thinking we've lost everything, only to stumble into the one place where everything we ever needed was waiting for us. In dust, in silence. In a barn forgotten by the world, I left my life behind at 60. Not because I hated it, but because I couldn't breathe in it anymore. And what I found in that abandoned barn wasn't just memories or secrets, or a rusted photograph tucked into a piano. What I found was her, the daughter I never knew. The forgiveness I didn't deserve. The second chance I thought I'd never get. It's never too late to be known by someone, even if they arrive carrying your name in a stranger's voice. You see, this isn't just my story. It's yours too. Maybe not the barn or the harmonica, or the photo of a child with your eyes, but if you've ever felt like time passed you by, if you've ever wondered whether healing still shows up after the world calls you too old, too late, too gone. Then let me say this, you're not too late. You're right on time. That barn was broken. So was I, and maybe so are you, but broken doesn't mean beyond repair. Sometimes it just means unfinished, and if this story meant something to you, if it echoed somewhere quiet in your chest, then maybe this channel is your barn, a place to sit in the quiet, to remember, to feel. To start again, here on Life After 50, we don't rush stories. We honor them, and we honor you, the listener who stayed. So if this story found you at just the right time, subscribe. Not to follow, but to belong. We'll keep telling stories like this, ones that feel like letters, like healing. And if there's someone in your life who's been quiet too long, who needs a second chance, a soft landing, share this video with them. Let them know, sometimes the abandoned places are where we finally come alive again. Thank you for listening, truly. Until next time, may your own barn find you. And may what you find inside bring it all back.